Ladies and gentlemen, the curse apple has changed and we have a storm coming your way today in an unstable form. Just Cap, I'm going to be hosting today in night shift number 45, joined alongside me by two very dapper, very handsome gentlemen waiting on the NA show, of course, as I'm left here with DDK and Jake. How you two gentlemen doing today? Dan, how you been?
Good. I'm not prepared for this, Jason. We had a big patch drop. I mean, I know they're minor patches, but there's a big patch drop. There's loads of changes. I haven't had the ability to process it in my brain. There's too much going on.
Yeah, Jake, I mean, it's crazy with what's happened and what they consider to be a minor patch these days.
I mean, this is the nature of Deadlock, right, as an alpha game, but I'm a really big fan of this patch, and I played just a few games, right, yesterday and, a little bit today as far as just getting my feet in the water and getting a sense of the new patch, and I think it's a lot of fun. I mean, the community, I think, has been asking for a long time for like an extra objective, and splitting what was the urn into effectively two different objectives now, I think kind of accomplishes that. There's a lot to do on the map. There's a lot of complications for players and teams to be able to react to in the match. And for me, it's a ton of fun. And summoning the Men in Black troopers is pretty awesome when you're able to win the Unstable Rift. I'm sure we'll see a lot of that, teams trying to play around those moments in matches today.
Yeah, I think it's going to be chaos. It's going to be unstable for all these teams as well, having very limited time to play on the new patch. But before we do break down all the notes, of course, let's kind of remind you guys out there who might be joining us for the very first time. First of all, welcome on what we are here on the Deadlock Night Shift. We choose the best of the best from each region going head to head, and we eventually end up in a money match where the winner from last week returns back into the show, already thought it through for that chance in the best of three to win the big bucks. And this week, we got some new names. Well, one new name joining us here. We have Abrahams, who have recently won the R1 tourney over Buff Enjoyers 3-2, taking on not necessarily a new team, but a new team in name and a new team here on the night shift of Oblivion, Dan.
Yeah, who the hell are these people? We're going to have to go on a journey of discovery. We're so used to seeing the same names. I don't even know what to make of this. It's going to be a lot of fun, though, because it is a treat to get new names, new brands into the EU section of the show. So I'm looking forward to it.
And then Jake, on the other hand of this show, coming up later on after we're done with EU, we did have an NA qualifier match with Burger Clock taking down Get Candy, which honestly, I don't know if we can zoom into that logo, but I'm kind of already digging it because it looks like a dog with a lollipop, and boy, I am tired of seeing cat emojis everywhere. But NA, it's going to be a run back from last week, Jake.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is always going to be an interesting one to see, especially after a hot and fresh new patch. And let us take a look. Get Candy also.
Look at that doggo.
Oh, it's a cutie pie.
I got the best name. Bird with Candy. That could be the ultimate fusion of these two teams. But it's about time we have some dogs here on the show on the Deadlock Night Shift.
I couldn't agree more, Jason. I think that's a fantastic call. We need more dog logos. That's a call out straight up to the teams right now. We need more cute puppers on this show. Our quotient very low right now.
And, poor Dan here in the middle. I think the only one that has cats between us three here on the show. But before we move into this patch notes, which are coming around the corner, we got to once again thank all of you out there who have been supporting us since day one or since today or even last week. It doesn't matter who you are. We appreciate all the support. We got to check in with our Patreons once again. Our big $250 Night Shift board members with Affix, Incredible Mouse, Skinna, Tetsio, and Miss. But of course, every week we like to point out an individual out there. And it doesn't matter what tier you're in of support, and who do you have, Dan, to go with?
King Slime, because I feel like Slime gets a bad rep, and so it's time for your spotlight. The King of the Slime.
Okay. Who do you got, Jake?
I am going to go with BZ Prism. It just catches my eye. I kind of dig the name. But seriously, to everybody who's out here supporting, whether on Patreon, Twitch, YouTube, just watching the show, telling your friends about it, it makes a difference. And we were here week in, week out. Have we crossed a year, guys? I mean, I feel like we're really getting there.
We're on 45, so we're not quite there if we do it once a week, Jake.
It's pretty close. I mean, we skipped a couple weeks for Christmas and New Year's. Like
that's true.
Really
that's true.
Of it. So
that is a very good point.
I'm proud that we've been able to come all this way and that we've got, I think a bright future in Deadlock. If this is the, minor update before, more significant stuff coming. If you missed it, Yoshi posted about that in the Deadlock official Discord. Then I think it's a great sign. I think the game is actually really fun right now. And I'm, a big fan of these initial changes. I'm really excited to see what the top players are able to do with it, how they work around them.
Yeah, I think things are going to be quite messy today, as we'll actually take a look at those patch notes now and catch you guys up on what you might have missed being released just yesterday. And starting off with the King of the Hill. So if you guys remember, in a previous iteration, the previous iteration of the urn, you would deposit it in a position that would cause a King of the Hill battle to activate. but those two objectives have now been pulled apart from each other and act completely different. So no longer King of the Hill. It's going to be called Unstable Rift. And Jake, I mean, having some experience into it here already, it's going to be, I think, messy, at least for the first week, for teams to get acclimated to this.
Yeah, I think one attribute that is pretty interesting to see them experiment with is the variable start time of the event. I think you could see this as like more randomness in the game, but I actually think there's a really, because of that in-world only effect, it actually makes a really powerful reward for teams who are ahead and pressuring the map. Like sitting back, playing your own walkers, playing defensively now is more and more punished because you don't have the information as early about, where the rift's actually going to be, when it's going to pop. So if you're keeping all your lanes pushed, I think for, the last patch, it was definitely possible to kind of, hold the bunker down and play the comeback soul game and play the walkers. And, it's difficult for the opponent to progress the game. I think the Unstable Rift is really going to change that now. It's going to feel a lot worse to be sitting on the defensive. Teams are going to be more motivated to be out on the map, control the area, and see what's going on. Also, it just starts a pretty powerful push wave because when you win the Unstable Rift fight, if you win it, you summon basically super troopers, men in black, to come push down a lane for you. And those can be incredibly powerful. I mean, if you fight with those troopers, they can take base guardians, I think, way early than was realistically possible before.
Big shout out to really quickly here, Dan Korsaka with a 10 gifted here dropped in the chat. But I do have to actually wonder, Dan, thinking about to these new super troopers, the men in black troopers we got, is there any sort of rim interaction we could see making them even stronger for a push?
Yeah, that's exactly what the first thing I was gonna say is that I do wonder like what teams have been doing with respect to that, because it does seem like very powerful, and I could absolutely see if you drafting a comp towards a push-based style where you really maximize the advantage that those troopers get if you add the rem buffs or the little helpers, in addition to any other heroes in your composition that are really good at like pushing and just playing off the tempo. So it is interesting, will the game emphasize more of a macro style element? I'm really curious how the game's going to change, and also how much priority actually ends up being put on the urns, because obviously it's a solo objective. The rift is going to be significantly more important. So it's going to be really fun to see how it plays out as we get to see a little preview right here. Silver standing there, just looking to claim the rift, and there are the new troopers. They're very big and kind of scary, to be honest.
These guys are tough, scary. Man. They are tough. Like, watch them take this guardian. Like these things are kind of beasts. I'm not gonna lie, solo a guardian at 5 minutes. That's interesting.
Looking at the portal as well, it kind of makes me wonder: is there a world we see the King of the Hill type event actually be? You have to enter the portal and you get transported somewhere, and then you have to fight in that area. So then you're taken off the map, and that allows teams to push against you if you want to actually go for contest or something like that. I don't know. There's so many ideas that they can come up with, and so many things they could do. And yeah, that guardian, it's out of here, and those minions haven't taken too much damage.
That's great. And this is like 6 minutes in where the resists are still like decent on the Guardian. So for no assistance, I mean, it's kind of wild. Yeah. So it definitely should have a profound impact in terms of actually forcing the game forward from the early game.
Watch, they'll take walkers. I mean, this is something where, I think it's interesting. In the past, I really feel like hard sieging walkers is just a bad play. Like almost always, even if you're pretty far ahead, unless the other team is dead or distracted or busy elsewhere on the map, you can't really just siege a walker because it's so powerful defensively. But I think this new objective could actually change that. We could see teams like intentionally taking fights on enemy walkers, trying to leverage these creep advantages. I think that's going to be kind of a new type of battle taking place in Deadlock.
That's a scary thing, man. And the fact is, like, that was only like what, four, I think it was 5 of them spawned. If you get it as a comeback, depending on how far behind you are, you could get 12 of these. And I can see a world where the game ends from 12 just pushing because you keep the team active somewhere else on the map. But there's a lot of other changes that have happened as well. The urn in particular, if we can stop here, it has changed drastically, Jake. And I think it's something we have to talk about.
Yeah, so basically the urn is now a much more viable solo objective. I think the most important change is that the enemy team no longer sees you on the minimap when you're holding the urn. And maybe the second most important change is that you're no longer disarmed or silenced. So essentially, you're just stronger than normal with the urn, right? You get like the movement buffs and such. And so you're quite strong. The only real weakness you have is that you can't parry while you're holding the urn, so people can, snatch it off your hands with a melee. But I think there's going to be a lot more sort of risky, solo urn dunks gone for, because it's a lot more viable now. The enemy doesn't necessarily know where you're coming from. But of course, no longer being able to be manually dropped is huge. So the person you choose to pick up the urn is essentially committing to either finishing it or just holding it until it completely expires, which is still now completely viable. It doesn't hurt you anymore to hold. So I think this is actually going to be a lot more interesting and dynamic. It's not so much of a team objective anymore, although maybe, hey, in competitive play, maybe teams will try to do it as a unit, but it's worth so much fewer souls. It's plausible. You trade earn, you take a sinner or two. It's kind of an even trade. So I just think it's gonna be a lot more interesting to see people kind of make more solo plays. In Deadlock, I think maybe there was a little bit of a lack of that in competitive play, with everything feeling like it needs to be a huge team fight, other than the occasional split push. So I think earn's gonna be a lot of fun. I think we'll see people going for more like crazy dunks, trying to just like do the fastest possible speed run. I've been seeing a lot of that on the Deadlock subreddit recently, people doing like insane speed runs to try and dunk the urn. And I think that actually may have a place in the game, and characters like Celeste and Viscous who can really, fly in from maximum range.
And you can just pick it up as haste, just go invis, just run it and cap it whilst you're invis the whole way. It's kind of crazy.
I do wonder, is there a world we do see Doorman get even more highly prioed, because you could have someone pick it up, force yourself to drop it, so then your carry can pick it up and turn it in. So you can funnel more souls to that carry in particular, or think of ways you can do that to make sure they get more and more ahead. I mean, I can imagine OCs out there thinking, I can get even further ahead now.
Yeah, the fact that the souls go to the person who dunked it, unless an ally secures the souls, which splits them 50-50, but still, it's a much more focused injection of souls. It's worth less overall, but to the person who dunks it, it's worth significantly more in general, right? It's a bigger boost for them. So I think it'll be really, it kind of opens the door. Do you want to feed it to the carry, or just let the carry farm and have this be an objective that the supports or the frontliners can kind of contest over, depending on the state of the game?
Yeah, let's maybe head down the patch notes a little bit here and get towards maybe some of the hero specific ones. I mean, obviously, I guess there's a lot of items as well we could go over. I completely forgot about that. Does anything particularly you want to talk about?
I just want to quickly mention, right above, we see that they removed the jump pads from the double center buildings. So actually, the invading to the sinners is going to be much more risky now. So I actually like that change, because the sinners invades, it felt very easy and very, very hard to counterplay if you're the team from behind to stop that. Just wanted to mention that.
No, I think that's good. I also think the dash jump change is pretty interesting. Like the vertical impulse is like a small change, but it has felt, at least for me, that it's a lot more fluid to dash jump around the map. There's a lot of sort of like mid-height ledges that you can now more comfortably clear and transition into a slide. It's a small thing. I mean, really more of like you're probably not going to notice it in a spectator environment, but they've also, in general, reduced overall health, I believe, from per boon. So generally should like lower the time to kill a little bit. Obviously, that's like a really key stat in in a game like Deadlock. So they're not going to do anything too crazy. I don't think 5% is going to be massive, but it's enough to say, hey, maybe those kills that would have been on the edge before maybe now feel more possible. Maybe making comebacks feel more realistic to pick off those enemy carries.
Yeah, and actually at the very top of the patch notes, there was something there I wanted to mention too. If we can, I just want to make production scroll. No, I'm just kidding. I'm kidding. I just want to make you work for it, because I see you going up and down constantly. Let's get into some of the hero changes in particular, because there has been quite big tweaks to a specific kind of hero. I'm looking towards Billy, for instance, since we've seen a rise of Billy in the last week or two. He's been, I would say, like slightly nerfed, especially when it comes to health, if I'm not mistaken. I think he had like health reduction.
Yeah, everything kind of got.
Or maybe I just read it.
I mean, he's part of the global health reduction, right? So
I was just gonna say, like, T3 Rising Ram was, I think, really the only buff that he got, but otherwise everything was kind of brought down, which kind of honestly kind of feels like it makes sense. I was playing a lot of Billy over the last couple of weeks, and honestly, he's been unbelievably powerful. And so I'm not too surprised that he's getting kind of pulled in line. I actually still feel like Billy's going to be very good. I think it's going to... I do wonder if there's going to be any more focus on a bit more kind of spirit-leaning builds to kind of maximize the Rising Ram. But usually you'd get Rising Ram pretty quickly to level 3. So yeah, it might change some priorities and how Billy gets kind of built and so on. But I think he will lose a little bit of prio today. And there's other reasons we're going to go through as we look at the rest of the list.
What else, Jake? What else you see when it comes to the heroes and the changes that really stand out to you? That could be, I'd say, like meta changing for us here on the night shift.
So that's
for the most part, the changes these do actually feel pretty small to me. Like I don't think anything is really massive. I mean, Celeste getting a couple damage bonuses and a little bit of utility here and there is going to be nice. Doorman getting a small doorway nerf. Like I don't know that, at least from my read of the patch, I didn't notice anything that was radically different. By the way, Krisana, what the hell? Another 20 gifted. Thank you so much for that. That's huge for us here. But yeah, you can see some of the changes. I feel like these are all in that same nice little small to medium category, and they all feel like they make sense. I mean, characters that we really weren't seeing much of, getting a little bit of love, those that were being played, you know, all the time, getting kind of taken down. GT losing permanent spirit scaling is gonna, I mean, that's gonna hurt. I think that's really a key part of the character's success. Holiday definitely got taken down a pretty significant notch in terms of the raw damage from the powder keg, which I actually think is the right way to do this change. Like, it still gives you the utility, it's still good at setting up lassos, and it's still going to be, you know, more consistent than it was prior to the recent changes. But the raw damage from just barreling somebody 4 or 5 times, okay, that's been taken down a little notch, which makes sense to me.
I think one thing to bear in mind in the context of all these changes is that, let's say like Celeste, for example, you know, with some of the damage bonuses, the overall health pools have come down for everybody. So that kind of makes some of these more burst type heroes a bit more powerful. Like, we'll see Vindicta got some slight buffs as well. Drifter also got some slight buffs. You know, bursty heroes, I think, are going to get a lot of value from this patch. Mina included. Mina was already, I actually think Mina was in a pretty good place. But I think Mina, with some of the buffs that we see here, and again, improving some of the damage, I think is going to make Mina also more attractive. I'm kind of expecting to see a bit more Celeste, a bit more Mina. The shift changes are the ones I'm most interested to see what you guys think.
I do think that T3 Sanguine is actually, that's a massive buff. The range on the bats, because remember that range is applied every time you proc the bats, which I believe is still 3 times at tier 3. So you have like a pretty bonkers escape now on Mina. I mean, this was, I think, really the ability that was kind of checking her power, getting, you know, came in really strong, got nerfed pretty heavily. And now, I mean, that's the kind of change that makes you think maybe max bats, this hero is going to be really hard to catch.
Well, you mentioned Shiv, and honestly, I think that might be one of the most interesting ones we've actually seen in the character-specific ones. Because I saw, like, I think it was Cosmetical talking about Shiv, and I just want to actually, I'll just say the tweet really quickly. He said he thinks the old Shiv is more fun for his own playstyle, but the new Shiv definitely isn't awful either. People are very prone to overreacting. People just need to get used to the new Shiv. You have to build differently, which is interesting. And I think what's also interesting is the fact that now slowing Hex stops his alt fire from giving the extra movement, but also you can't right click as much to get away, considering it costs now more ammo. I think that's a really cool change, but also Slice Nice with a change as well with damage amp. I mean, it's you just have to play Shiv differently, but I'm really curious to see if we're gonna have any teams actually play him today with these changes.
I do think the killing blow changes are a pretty, well, for them, maybe they're a big win to like the older playstyle Shiv where you're really playing around killing blow. I think last patch people were mostly using killing blow to escape, right? Or like on it felt like that, at least as much as they were actually going for kills, but the range had been taken down pretty significantly to maybe make this a little bit more, especially with, you max this out, I mean, the execute threshold is kind of insane for cleaning up, you know, relatively low HP tanks. I will say damage amp, even though it's global damage amp, which seems really, really good, damage amp is worse than shred. So like something like escalating exposure gives damage amp, but that's considered generally sort of an early game of the 6,000, you know, cost items, because it's, you know, shred still works no matter how high you stack the damage. If you have a super high resist, you're still resisting a, you know, a high percentage of that huge damage value. So I would argue that that moving from the resist shred to damage amp is actually a pretty big nerf to Shiv as well. I think these bloodletting changes are pretty big nerfs, because I think the incoming damage deferred is in fact the more significant value to change. You kind of need to get to tier 3 on that. So I feel like my thought is that I like the way they're going with these changes. It feels like melee is going to be a more important part, well, it has to be now, a part of the Shiv build. But I think in general, I still feel like this is a bit of a nerf, and it might take a minute. But this is Shiv after all, so it's like, you know, you'd be kind of crazy to think there's any change that'll make this hero, you know, not very relevant in competitive play.
How many times has he been nerfed and changed, and he's still like a decently high priority pick when it comes here to the night shift? Dan, do you have any thoughts on Shiv, or do you want to move on to another hero?
No, yeah, I'm just very interested in how people will interpret it with the builds. I have a suspicion that Shiv is like kind of like you're alluding to, that Shiv is still going to be very good. Again, maybe you do some of the build priority a little bit different. I think the fact that you can chain killing blows right from the beginning right now is really nice. And you get max rage from it as well. So you're getting onto that damage amp. If you get one kill with it, you immediately become very, very threatening. So super curious what the pros will make of it. Yeah, excited. And it's also funny here, we're going to see Pocket catch some extra nerfs because why not? You know,
I will say the Pocket gun damage was a little wild, honestly. Even when you had pretty minimal investment into it, he had a really sick, you know, amount of gun damage. But I mean, a real reduction on the flying cloak CD. I don't think this really changes much for Pocket. In the end, you're picking this hero for Affliction. I think Rem getting some pretty interesting changes, losing some spirit resist on the little helpers definitely hurts. Feels like for a lot, like that's a big reason why you pick this hero is to get that extra resist. But of course, at tier 3, those resists could be kind of crazy.
Yeah, and you're seeing we're going to have one less helper overall, if I'm reading that correctly, as well as our lovely production is pointing that one out. I mean, the thing is, Rem, I think he had a pretty subpar win rate in Night Shift the last weeks, even though we saw the change to tag along. You could heal every single person on your team with the missing health. That wasn't enough to like really bump him up when it came to the win rate. But maybe one more hero when it comes to win rate that I wanted to mention was actually Warden towards the bottom, because it's one of those heroes that honestly, we only see really Zergy playing. And it did have a nerf to the overall bullet damage per boon by a pretty, I would say, significant amount. And I think I heard Zergy say on a stream earlier on that, yeah, it does hurt Warden quite a bit. I'm not sure if we're going to actually see him play something like that today when we get into our money match. But I find it interesting that they're still trying to like pull Warden back a little bit. Basically, I want to say off of Zergy's performance.
It does feel now like they really want to bring back Spirit Warden, or at least, you know, inject a little bit of that spirit into the build. I think, you know, for the last, few months of play, people have been building Warden almost exclusively pure gun, like maybe 0 spirit items. Maybe they buy like just the, you know, the 4.8k spike with some efficient gun, effectively items that do gun damage, like Surge of Power or Bullet Resist Shredder. But, you know, it seems like the last patch, people started building Merc Mag and started building some, you know, around the ultimate at times. It feels like they kind of want to keep pushing in that direction while kind of keeping him in that hybrid identity. So I think that'll be interesting to see. But that raw bullet damage reduction, I honestly think that might kind of take Warden out of viability, at least for the moment, or teams will pick him and really try to play for like an ulti-centric build that doesn't care so much about the gun damage. Still, anytime you lose base gun damage, that really hurts. That really hurts on any hero that wants to get farm and wants to use their gun really at all.
Another quick things, a couple quick things I'll mention as well, Viscous above, is that I think Viscous got kind of like a nice change to kind of bring him a bit more in line, just a slight nerf to splatter, but also, you know, yeah, just making the Google a little bit better. I think I like these changes because I kind of like where Viscous was, but yeah, the splatter was really the problem. And then the other thing I wanted to draw attention to is Vindicta. I think Vindicta could be a lot more playable now again, just with the context of there being lower health pools across the board. You know, that should in theory make Vindicta, who's a snowbally character that would put like massive burst damage, potentially also more viable again. Because I don't think she was bad before, but it's just, you know, it's harder to play in the pro scene at least.
And I mean, she does feel like she's has a very niche role though, and it still seems to be leaning towards support more so than a carry. But maybe the changes are enough to make that, I mean, not necessarily like a carry, but more of a carry than she previously was.
I think a lot of these heroes that like in general on Vindicta, you want to end the game early. I think that's fair to say. It's not a hero that does well in the ultra late game. Like once people start buying Phantom Strikes, you just feed. Like it doesn't really matter how much damage you have on the character. You know, with the damage scaling from the snipe, you just get Phantom Struck and jumped on, and you just don't really have tools that answer that in the late game. You're just not tanky enough to be able to actually bring that bullet damage into a really contested fight. But I think in general, the Rift and the Troopers it spawns are going to make playing for early game, playing for tempo, and trying to win in like 20, 25 minutes, it feels maybe more viable. I think that's going to be the change that all of these, you know, hero changes need to be looked at through the lens of is like, how well do you do in the Rift fight? And how well do you actually play around those Troopers if you do win? Can you take big objectives? Can you get an early shrine? Because if that's possible, taking a shrine earlier than it was before, that changes everything, right? Shrines.
Oh, no. Look, you're doing a production, man.
But so I just think overall, I really like these changes. A lot of buffs and nerfs to the same heroes to kind of make things more interesting build-wise, where people were just, you know, maxing the same abilities every single time on a lot of these heroes. And now, okay, there's a little bit more thought to be put in. Okay, maybe you should change the priority order of your points on characters like Warden or Vindicta or even Viscous, right? And I like when they add that kind of complication to the game. It keeps things interesting. Is the perfect way to keep things, you know, worth playing and worth exploring while we're waiting for bigger content updates down the line.
All right, well, gentlemen, I want to wrap up this discussion now because we've been going on for about like 20 minutes, it feels like, and we got games to play and we got teams waiting for us. So we're going to wrap the patch notes. I know it's a lot of information for y'all to digest. It's a lot for us and a lot for the players as well, but we'll see how it plays out over the course of the day. But to remind you what's coming up, we got Abraham's taking on Oblivion, and we'll go into the Abraham's roster to give you guys an idea if you missed out on who is playing on this team off the back of a major high winning R1 tourney over the team that they always seem to never be able to beat of Buff Enjoyers in a 3-2 affair. This team, I think they're coming in this week here for blood, Dan.
Yeah, totally. I love that Abraham's managed to get that scalp. I think that is a big confidence booster because I do feel like, Buff Enjoyers were starting to get that psychological edge on every team in the region, but that should certainly break anything like that. But yeah, Sanya Sniper together, Saint, Taz, Ozo, Empty Dreams, just a star-studded roster back to front. And I'm super excited to see what they do with this patch because I would actually say that any new changes, I just feel like the better team at adjusting more quickly these days is going to be Buff Enjoyers, and Abraham's usually I feel like are a little bit slower. So that's what I'm going to be looking at today. Is what's their read? Are they behind? Are they ahead of the game? We'll see.
I think
it's
this
very
team
difficult. Yeah,
they've always been solid, and once you get one win, it kind of changes everything, right? You know that you can surmount the opposition, and these chaotic patch changes. I do think Abraham's, I feel like their calling card as a team has been that they are fantastic in these like big, heavy numbers team fights. I feel like they're kind of the best team in the world when it comes to the mid boss. I feel like they somehow always come away with rejuves, even when it seems completely impossible. And so I think for a team like this to be able to like push those big team fights early, win around those Rift Troopers and turn those into like game ending or game deciding pushes, I think that plays really well to their style, and I want to see maybe this team more than any other how they approach the current patch.
Well, their opponents, let's take a look at their roster. It's going to be Oblivion, and I saw a lot of people in chat asking, who's even on the team? Who are these guys? Well, they did play in the R1 tourney that happened just this last week, and they did unfortunately not make it past the group stage where they went 1-4. But you're going to recognize a couple of the names here. For instance, Colt, Bandwise, Bobby, and there's a couple of new names. And if you guys didn't catch the R1 tourney event, Balaclava played wearing a balaclava on stream on his camera. So it was actually really funny to see. But I mean, this team, they've had experience against Abrahams. I would say like new and up and coming. They've had people play on the highest levels or highest echelons here over in EU. But Dan, I think this is going to be definitely a true test for them here on the DLNS stage.
Yeah, I mean, as Jake was alluding to, Abrahams are so good, just overall as a team. They're just highly robust in every part of the game, so it's very hard to out fundamentals them, and that's kind of where you have to start. Can you win the macro game? Can you be better at the team fights? Can you be better at finding these individual picks and finding nice setups and good invades and also what's your hero pool like? This is always something that's going to separate teams at this level, is the ability to be versatile and get banned out as we see Balaclava there.
Got the tracksuit too. It's iconic.
Still be strong. Yeah, I mean, it's the whole thing. I mean, the problem is right now, that's branding right there. That's branding. So you got to do that for the rest of your career, like however long your career is.
Yeah, I think what's interesting to them for Jake is the fact that this is a best of one, right? So with the big change, with the changes that have happened in this last minor update, there is a world that Oblivion surprise Abrahams with something different or play a different style they're not expecting and catch them off guard. I think for them, this is maybe their biggest opportunity to really show what they can do here and take down, basically the number 2 team in EU for the last 3-4 months.
Yeah, and it's a tough time to be able to roll the challenger match here because, of course, Abraham's, getting that win recently. Maybe they look like the number 1 team. Maybe they're here to really take the entire title. So Oblivion have their work cut out for them in terms of challenging them here in this best of 1 challenger match for EU. But also when we see a new team come in like this, I'm just excited to see, what new players that we haven't seen before can show a good performance, can get me interested in, what does this player bring to the table. So yes, it's a really unlucky draw to be going up against Abrahams while they seem so strong, and they are certainly the underdogs in this series. But I still want to see what they can show us, and EU is a region that still continues to deliver newer and better talent as time goes on. So I don't think that's going to change anytime soon, and I'll definitely keep my eyes open to see who on this Oblivion squad really looks to stand the test of time.
All right, well, do we have our Mo 1v1 ready so you can see how this one's going to break down and who's going to be representing Oblivion? Because we know it's almost guaranteed to be Saint every time when it comes to Abrahams, though he has had a very bad track record lately. I think he lost 2 weeks in a row, and I actually can't tell who's on who here, if I'm honest. Is that Sonya Sniper? It's a long enough a name to be Sonya Sniper.
Is it Taz? Am I crazy? I see there's a couple characters on blue. It's like, this is the challenge of the moment.
I see Halfex. Okay, I see
Orange is getting wrecked.
It's down to the absolute wire, though. Basically, 1 heavy's worth of HP for the Orange Mo, for the Hidden King Mo, and the Archmother Mo has a little bit of tankiness, but it's going to come down to 1 parry. Heavy's traded here, though. That'll be good enough to get the win with just a sliver of HP, one of the closer Mo 1v1s I think we've had on the show.
So that means that a team will have choice of
One
first
of the
pick
teams.
or second. We don't know which team.
The other one lost. That's what we can say for sure.
That is the best commentary I've ever heard on the night shift. One team won and one team lost. But the draft, I think this is what would be really interesting. I think probably the most interesting part for me is actually seeing how teams now approach the draft maybe differently. Has priority changed for certain heroes? We saw Holiday being a very favorable pick. We saw Doorman as well. We saw a lot of pocket bans coming out. I do wonder, and maybe you have some insights, gentlemen, on who we might be see actually as proud as a first pick, or will we just see the same of what we've been having this last couple of weeks?
Oblivion still get rid of the Holiday. They have first pick, so maybe they don't think Holiday is worthy of the first pick themselves. See what the response is from Abrahams. Will it just be Billy, which I think probably would have been the case last week, but
could be seeing Doorman as well. Doorman got just a very minor change. I think it's just like a cooldown nerf to the doors just ever so slightly. So Doorman is still like a pretty high tier problem, I think, at the top level. But Pocket, yeah, just that slight gun damage. I mean, that's not the problem really. I mean, obviously it's kind of wild, but it's not really the problem with Pocket. So
it hurts the early game for Pocket, but in the end, right, it's not going to be hugely a game changer. Oblivion goes with the Billy. Silver also, I believe, got no changes in this most recent patch, so I expect to see her still a top prio choice. Abrams getting some pretty minor nerfs in my view. I mean, the radius nerf on tier 3 of the book is, I think, pretty significant, but that's relatively later into the game. But Abrams, go with the Mirage, a carry that has been really rising back to prominence over the last few weeks. Also, if I'm not mistaken, no changes to him. And speaking of a character that fits in well to the current meta, this is always has been Mirage's strength, is that he can be macroing, he can be pressuring the map, farming as he pleases, and he's still going to be there at the crucial moment of the team
fight. Let's see it. Is that going to be together, Hassan and Sniper? I'm hyped. I'm excited. But before we hop into the shift here, Dan, I wanted to bring up the fact that Mirage, we've seen him not being played anymore, at least last week alone, as a primary M1 carry. It's been more of like a secondary carry. And I found that adaptation teams to be very interesting.
Yeah, Mirage is really interesting as well, because like with the Scarab changes, I feel like that was something that needed some time for people to really understand how to maximize the playstyle around that, because it does allow him to be a lot tankier and more brawly. And that global teleport is still like a unique ability that's pretty powerful to teams that can really understand how to exploit the macro. And given that Mirage can, still get to that late game and be a really huge threat in terms of how you play him, I think teams just had to kind of figure out how do we optimize in each portion of the game and figure out the builds. And so interested to see if it's worth the first pick.
Viscus going to be picked up here for Abrahams, getting some very, I would say, minor nerfs in the patch, but still, I think, really the top tier support, given the amount of damage he can bring, and the hard save from Cube looks really valuable right now, especially playing around those rifts, being able to keep somebody alive when otherwise they would be certainly dead to rights and heal them back up. Massive impact, of course, for the game. So you can say the same about Rem, though, right? The ability to kind of turn those difficult fights when a frontliner seems to be going down, and you can actually kind of change the momentum of that fight with one or two skills. Super important, and that's why I think both teams picking up those support options.
I'll be ready.
Wow. See, we forgot Doorman wasn't banned, and Doorman wasn't even picked in top 3 out of either team. Though I don't know if that's going to stay true when we get into the Buff Enjoyers match coming up after this best of 1. But now we have our final bans coming on through here, Dan, into the next pick. Abraham still missing like a true M1 carry at the moment, unless they do want to play Mirage. Or, you know what? Infernus is also still really good. I don't know your thoughts on him recently, but I'm so happy to see him kind of come back into the meta, though I think a lot of people out there aren't happy to be playing against more Infernus.
I like Infernus right now. I think it does give pretty massive DPS. I mean, Napalm is one of the scarier skills in the game when it's maxed. I mean, it's giving like I think it's 33% damage amp. It's something monstrous, and it gives it to everybody on your team, focusing down a target. So it's really difficult to survive when you're getting focused down by Infernus. So he's a great tool to have when you're trying to burst down these tanky options. And Oblivion have quite a few heroes who I think kind of want to tank through that damage. So I like the choice of Infernus here.
Yeah, I mean, I'm interested to see, Jason, because we saw that Oblivion went for the Rem in the top 3, which obviously I think Rem was still like, I think, one of the priority supports, but I just feel like there's that extra dynamic that we're going to be looking at now of the rifts and which team's going to perform better than the rifts. And you've got to be taking that into account. So with the Infernus and the Flame Dash, obviously the area control's nice there. Lady Geist, she's got some good AoE, some good circles, as that becomes important in this meta with the way the rifts will operate. So I am curious though to see the Geist performance, because I feel like Geist has been more underwhelming in the recent last couple months.
Mm-hmm. So where's Paradox been, man? We see Bebop being picked up here as the last choice for Abraham's Jake, and then going to the last pick for Oblivion. I mean, is Paradox on the cards for them, considering they don't really have that strong pick hero?
It'd be a good option, but they go with the Drifter instead. I think we've seen a couple teams actually start to integrate the Drifter little by little more into their style. And, I do think Drifter does provide some unique options as a character. I mean, the blind is still pretty relevant, even in big team fights, even in competitive play, but also the infinite scaling, infinite gun scaling. Drifter can actually, I think, utilize it decently well. So it's a hero who you get down to these like messy trade fights, especially with Calico, Silver, roaming the map, setting up opportunities. Drifter can quietly amass a ton of stacks and become maybe one of the more serious threats on the map, since he kind of scale forever, which definitely looks like a threat. Abraham's, though, they've got a pretty mean scaling lineup themselves. They have a ton of late game in their comp, and the Viscous, the Bebop, I think the picks that are kind of designed to ensure that they actually get to that point where Geist can really come online, Mirage can really get those debuffs rolling, and even Infernus, right? Getting in towards a late game, getting past the point of just doing insane damage and, starting to pick up those Unstoppables, that, Ethereal Shift, these items that make Infernus really hard to punish and bring down. So I like the draft Abrams got. I think for them, it's going to be a very comfortable one. For Oblivion, it's something I think quite a bit different than normal, especially with the Drifter pick really setting the stage. But I think there's also nice setup for it with Rem to support, Calico and Silver to assist in the front line, and Venator, always a stalwart carry, right? If the Venator gets really farmed, this is one of those heroes that can almost like 1v6, it feels like, in the late game.
Are you waiting for me, Jason?
I am. I'm waiting for you to give your thoughts.
Yeah, I'm enjoying the fact that we're going to get Drifter, because it does. I've seen some Drifters on this patch, and it has seemed to be the case that these buffs have certainly helped out quite a lot. I think just the fact that you can kind of, because before the, even with the Rens, it just takes kind of a while for that to come off, and then for you to be able to do something afterwards. And so, just having the small changes there, I think does allow Drifter to get more damage out. And then also, obviously, having some extra bonuses just around all of the abilities, especially like, you can get active after the cast summon the ultimate as well a bit more quickly. Like, all of these things I think add up, and especially because the game is going to be perhaps a bit more macro centric, you might be able to get more catches on heroes than before. Whereas before, maybe there would be a bit, a bit more, a bit higher of a or harder of a task to catch isolated players. So I think it could be a meta where Drifter could actually make sense. I guess we'll have to find out. But I don't know with Abraham's if I feel like there's any easy targets, because there's a lot of options, especially with the cube. You can dash away. Like Mirage has tools to escape. Like people can uppercut you away. Guys can hell swap you. Infernus can flame dash away. So I feel like there's a lot of like defensive options to prevent Drifter from being a crazy nuisance.
Also do seem, I'd say almost decently beefy as well. I mean, the pseudo beefiness obviously out of the cube, as you mentioned before. The one thing that does stand out to me though, Jake, looking at Oblivion, is that if you're Venator, you're going to have a field day. Like realistically, who's going into that backline against you, because you have such a strong, aggressive front line, and then Rem to balance between your tanky heroes. I give a little bit of a weird, connotation to tanky heroes considering the global health nerf across the board. But you do have a 4-man frontline squad with Rem to just jump between the Maul and Venator, who should have all the freedom in the world to play with.
Yeah, I think the ease of execution probably favors Oblivion in a way, right? Like it feels like their path to success is a little bit more deathball-y, a little bit more of those heavy committed group team fights, where I think there needs to be more finesse on the Abraham side with Bebop finding hooks, Viscous, making plays, making saves, Mirage and Shiv kind of pulling a lot of attention to themselves. And Infernus and Geist, although they have some tools to survive, these are like relatively easier to bring down kind of carries if you do get on top of them and lock them down, as characters like Silver and Billy absolutely can. So like they're more reliant on things like health swap. But if it's down, okay, Geist is vulnerable, she can be attacked. So I think Oblivion have a more straightforward comp, and I like that considering they're the underdog. I don't think they want to get too fancy, but Abrahams are such a strong team individually and as a unit that I really think the playmaking from Bebop in particular is going to suit them. Also, I'm just very curious to see Shiv, how it feels getting played, like what the build is. I'm sure whatever build, maybe it'll be together. I assume from this draft to be together playing the Shiv. Whatever he builds in this, someone's going to have that build up as like the top build in Deadlock for Shiv within 15 minutes. So together, there's a lot of responsibility on your shoulders right now, assuming you are the one piloting the ship.
You hear that, ZP? You better get on it. I mean, you do our hero builds over in our public Discord server, which you guys, if you haven't joined, you can type !Discord in the channel and actually go join it, and you can talk to everyone who's watching the show. But this could be, I'm gonna actually ask you guys the penultimate question here, as I believe we're just waiting for 1 or 2 players to get in the lobby. Of which comp are you favoring? Like, if you were to ignore the team names, right? Because I think that does play a big factor in this. Also, Legend wasn't me. Thank you so much for the 10 gifted subs. If you ignore the fact it's Abraham's, you know how there's such a steady and strong team, and you ignore that Oblivion's a newcomer, what comp in general do you kind of favor maybe for the current state of the game? Let's go with you first, Dan.
The current state of the game that we haven't seen.
Yeah, that's a little kicker at the end.
It's pretty tough. I feel like Shiv. I feel like Shiv will tempo faster depending on how you build him with some of the abilities. I want to talk more about that later. So I kind of want to lean towards. Abraham's roster. I'm going to lean towards Abraham's roster. I think they're going to be a little bit better on the tempo. I feel like they're going to be a little bit better also on the objective play. So I'm going to go with the Abraham's roster, I think.
I don't know if I can quite successfully put myself in the veil of ignorance here about which team is which. And so Abraham's, their strength is pretty hard to deny as a team. I do think Mirage is going to do really well this game. I think this is really what Mirage excels at, is dealing with these heavy tank comps, because it is so incredibly difficult to run down this character, I would say uniquely in the game. Like, double tornado, and then when you get Echo Shard online, I mean, he can be really exposed in enemy territory and still be able to safely get out of those fights, and stall things out, start building up stacks on the enemy. And so I think that late game threat for Abraham's is going to be really scary. Like, if we get to that point where Mirage is kind of ahead of the game and starts to feel a little bit unkillable, starts to create macro problems for Oblivion. If Drifter and Calico have crazy games and they're huge, like they're so threatening individually that it's really scary to split push, then I think Oblivion can get away with this. But I think if Abraham's just going to hold the game relatively even, they're going to be able to put a ton of macro pressure on with some of these heavier carry lineups. And Bebop, I tend to really like Bebop at high level play. I think it just gives so much threat, so much comeback potential. The ulti is pretty fantastic for the Rift fights because you can use it from so far away. So I do kind of lean towards Abraham's, but that's also quite a bit of bias coming from the fact that I think they're such strong favorites in this matchup.
Does this really mean I'm the only Oblivion believer out there? Let me know in chat. I didn't actually see the predictions, but I'm pretty confident in saying they're all leaning towards Abraham's. We're going to kick off our first match tonight. It's our challenger match, where Buff and Joes are waiting to play against the victor in a best of 3. Let's see who that's going to be with DDK and Jake.
Yes, this is going to be a fun one, Jake. I think I actually feel like there's a world where Shiv might be better, but it just depends on how you're looking at it. In terms of, because as you say, he loses that shred, which is really, really, really powerful, especially in the later game team fights when everyone's got a lot of spirit and so on and so forth. But I think that, there's some of the changes to the ult where you can kind of just chain the ult off of the first point once you're able to, assassinate somebody. The way the thresholds have changed when you leveled it up. I think some of those changes are really nice, and it works really well off of the new slice and dice, because he's not going to be able to get the shred on multiple different targets and so on and so forth. But let's imagine, like, you actually get into a fight, you get a killing blow, you have max rage, you have the echo, and then on that one target, and you're just like building up the damage amp. It just feels like there's a more snowball potential on the individual, these individual fights. So I don't know. I'm kind of bullish on Shiv. I don't know.
I could see the chain execute being kind of insane on the Rift fights, right? There definitely do feel like moments in those Rift fights where everyone's low on both teams. It comes down to like some low HP clutch factor moments. And, there's probably no one better than Shiv if his ult is indeed maxed in cleaning up a bunch of low HP enemies. That I think it's kind of like a forgotten playstyle in a way, since Shiv has really not been so ult focused since they've made those big changes. Definitely curious to see how it in fact plays out in this one. Venator, though, can be kind of a scary hero for Shiv, right? Like, the worst thing that can happen to you as a Shiv is getting locked down. But by the way, okay, the melee lifesteal hits like crazy. He just healed 100 off a slice and dice, and seeing that alone, I'm like, okay, maybe this hero is pretty scary.
I was gonna say, and I don't know, we're gonna get another death. It looks like that's not gonna happen, but yeah, being able to benefit off of the melee items like the Spirit Snatch as well, which that's just such a good melee item for Shiv, because he's still doing spirit damage as well. I definitely feel like there's so much ground to be explored with Shiv now, that I do think that he's gonna be really scary. I'm super excited to see it. And I didn't even think about the rift fights like you mentioned. And again, we talk about the fact that the health pulls are going to be lower overall. That means that people are going to get to that 30% threshold where you can get executed much more quickly. So again, I feel like that's going to be pretty benefiting the Snowball's playstyle of that killing blow.
Yeah, it feels like you maybe really have to prioritize Shiv in the fights, make sure he's dead before you kind of get to that point. But, I mean, Shiv, not an easy hero to bring down, even in the best case circumstances. Sonya and Arzo getting some nice early pressure, but I think Ram and Billy are doing a very nice job trading a little bit of Guardian HP, but staying relatively healthy in the lane, keeping the damage going back the other way as well.
Oh, nice grab coming through there onto Baby, making life a little bit challenging, although we'll get punished. So pretty nice. Arian able to get both kills there with Calico. Very well done. And I got to say, Jake, another thing that I do like about these rifts, though, is that we're going to get to see more objective-focused action earlier in the game.
Oh, the next parry on him. He's getting kind of dominated here on Drifter, which kind of sucks. I mean, Drifter can still have some nice value off the ultimate, but definitely a hero who wants to have good starts. And an additional parry, this time from Saint. This lane has gone from bad to worse. This feels like a bit of outplay from Together and Go.
Yeah, it's interesting. We're not really seeing it reflected on the scoreboard too much just yet, but now the waves are getting cleaned up. We're going to start to see perhaps some of the missed souls from the Oblivion side. Again, we'll see kind of how it turns out because, if I feel like, you make some mistakes, there's definitely a lot of world of, good rift play for the first rift that comes up. That is so early in the game, to 6 to 7 minutes, that you can, I wonder if this is going to be another way for you to kind of bring back some of these, the worst starts, Like, again, I just feel like there's a lot of potential in the way that can change the game, especially early on.
Yeah, definitely curious. I mean, I feel like that's maybe the most key lever in Deadlock right now is Sonya getting run down by Balaclava. Picks that one up. It's going to slow Infernus' roll just a bit. But as you're saying, like, I think that's the key of Deadlock is how much does having a lead help you? Because there are comeback mechanics in this game. Like, most MOBAs don't really have comeback mechanics. Maybe there's ways that, playing defensively can feel good, but Deadlock is full of genuine comeback mechanics, right? It's like Mario Kart level stuff at times. But you kind of need it in this game because otherwise, the lead would just be too oppressive. And so it feels like that's always the key lever they're pulling as the devs as far as, getting these patches going. A really nice burn on this Billy. It's a lot of damage on him, but they haven't really been able to convert to key kills.
Ooh, the parries.
Just Drifter is getting worked over. Colt is actually suffering in the parry battle. And Sonya comes right back into the lane, gets that counter kill on Balaclava and grabs a small clamp for his trouble.
Yeah, looking pretty far behind on the Drifter. Now 2.6k, that's pretty impoverished, but we'll see if there's any recovery to be had again. See what comes of this first rift. We do get both bridge buffs going to Abraham's, of course, off of that exchange, and I suppose the casting buff on Empty Dreams kind of nice for that extra damage. And already looking to take down this Guardian. Flame Dash, not quite as powerful as it used to be against objectives, but still has to be respected. And there we go. First Guardian going down in favor of Abraham's.
I mean, this is pretty rough right now, Dan. Like, they're getting kind of owned. Losing seems like both side lanes pretty handily, although Viscous Shiv aren't doing too much tower damage for it. Mid lane is theoretically the bright spot, but a lot of burden on Arian to not just win this lane, but kind of spread himself around the map and do yet more. But it's tough when you're rotating into lanes that have done as well as the Abraham side lanes.
It's really interesting too, actually, Jake, because there's more importance placed on these side lanes because of having that macro advantage going into that first rift as well. Like, you really need to win your side lanes.
This Drifter is not winning a damn thing other than a quick death, and this Infernus ult is going to be brutal. I am not sure Billy can survive being this deep. An additional parry. I mean, the parry game alone has, I think, been a statement from Abraham about the individual skill on this team. It feels like they are 9-1 or something in parries, and a lot of rebuttals bought, which makes a ton of sense given this Oblivion roster. There's a lot of characters that want to slip in some cheeky melees, and the way this early game has gone, they're really going to have to think twice about that.
Yeah, absolutely. It's been a drought of success. Worst kind of drought, I suppose, in a game like this. We'll see if there's anything to be done here, but really nice uppercut there. Just doing that extra damage, barely escaping on Silver.
She's in trouble, though, ticking out. The Scarab on the last tick, it seems like, finishes off Bobby. And, I mean, this is turned into a bloodbath. I gotta keep it so for real. Right now, the game is, like, dangerously out of control. Taz picks up Headhunter. There's just so much pressure on the map right now. There's really no relief for it.
Yeah, definitely problems as we get more and more aggression. It's just only beginning here, Abrahams, as they start to heat up. But everybody, how many kills do they have? The fact that we're like 7.5 minutes in, we've got 3 players on fire right now, a 5-kill streak for Sanya Sniper. That's not cool, man.
We're gonna get a pause here, a little moment for Oblivion to contemplate their position in this game, which is not good, Dan. It's just extraordinarily not good. Game crash for Billy, but I think this tower crash is what's coming next. I think this T1's going to go down, and the early game has been nothing short of a sweep here for Abraham.
Yeah, this is pretty rough. I don't know if we can see the kills, but there were so many kills exchanged in favor of Abrahams for the most part in the early game. I mean, I feel like we've seen at the top level a cooling down. Obviously, we don't know necessarily how this meta is going to play out just yet. We'll have to get the data, but I feel like there was a kind of a cooling down. I don't know. Do you agree, Jake, that we were starting to see less kills? At least like if you put the barometer with Abrahams versus Buff and Joyce, for example.
Yeah, I agree. I think top level teams have started to recognize like it's easier to defend than it is to, be hyper aggressive. So whenever I see this kind of a game where, very early on in the game, there's some pretty dominant like kill exchange, I tend to feel like that's a really bad sign for the opponents, right? When, the game doesn't favor this kind of a dominant advantage, these kind of like kill after kill after kill snowballs. And so when you're able to accomplish it, it says to me that you are a really strong team, or there's maybe a big difference between the two squads. Those alt fires from Shiv, I mean, it might cost more ammo, but they hurt.
Yeah, I love it. And you love a pause during a Bebop Hyper Beam. Makes the game feel like a little bit closer to Dragon Ball Z. All these beams everywhere. It should be the case that the Hyper Beam can like connect with the other beam and then just like create explosions. No?
The Hyper Beam creates explosions?
No, like connects to the other beam, like the beam from the tower, from the Guardian.
Oh yeah, like Ghostbusters, man. Don't cross the streams. I mean, I don't know that the Bebop ult needs to be more threatening. I feel like that ult in general is pretty nasty, especially in the early game where it feels like one of the highest sources of single target DPS in the game. It might genuinely be that, at least like right when the ultimates come online. Hopefully Oblivion is able to get Billy band-wise back into the match here, and looks like he is reconnecting, so we should be able to get underway shortly here, Dan.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, and I have to say, with Bebop, I think we went away from these earlier like faster tempo style Bebops where you get the ults online quickly, because there was an era where we would have like these majestic leap Bebops where you just like save all your points, like like your Vindicta is just pumping everything into the ult as soon as you can. Where with Bebop, you get an insane damage output by doing that, but getting the uppercut, getting the hook and the bomb online is just like more priority in the gun focused Bebop meta, which I feel like has persisted for a very long time at the top level, and it's super fascinating because I feel like whenever I've played matchmaking, people have always just been building spirit in matchmaking. The pros they've generally gone with a gun build. It's just kind of interesting.
I think the thing is the spirit build is so much easier to execute. So at top level play, I think the gun is theoretically better. By the way, back into the game. Right off the pause, and Furnace is like dancing for his life, but oh wait, what a hook. Okay, hold on. Maybe they're able to get a counter kill on Venator. Bomb's ticking on him, couple Mirage stacks, and Mirage is going so deep for this kill. It might even be punished in this. The Drifter Darkness starting to hurt, but it's been an absolute slog. Eventually this tower seems to be vulnerable to a kill, but actually no, it's going to turn into a lot of counter kills if Oblivion can run these down.
Yeah, still 2 players on fire, but that's something, 6k deficit. There's more ways to recover it, but something else to mention is that the objectives do give less in this new patch. Like everything gives a little bit less in terms of souls, so this is more of an advantage from Abrahams in terms of souls. That's just like legit. We've been getting more hero kills than you, and you're not going to be able to equalize this as easily.
Furnace getting a lot of early farmers, rush the green spike, so once he gets this Headhunter online, the Headhunter is not only going to heal pretty significantly since it offers a percentage-based heal, but this Furnace is going to be really tough to bring down. You can see he was already topping the hero damage we saw on the pause screen for his team. Mid Guardian, not long for this world. Mirage will pick that one up. Maybe went a little bit deep on the last dive, but this hero still a huge problem right now in the game. And really, I mean, that's not when we expect Mirage to be so strong, right? Like on release, he was so dominant on the lane, but now we usually think about him more in the late game, but I guess I'll have to wait for that as he does go down to the REM sleep.
So just easy cleanup here for Abraham's available as we get the mid pressure from Oblivion. Taz will take down Colts. We did get an objective going the way of Oblivion at the very least, but lots of punishes coming on through again in the form of kills here, and the snowball potential is going to be kind of scary. Also, 11k souls. Everybody pretty healthy here. Gets a bit of farming of souls here as well from Saint, able to take down players pretty deep in enemy territory here.
I mean, they're getting styled right now. Abraham's having fun with this. They are so deep in enemy territory. In any other team, I think this would be a crazy move, but the kills just keep coming. Taz keeps finding hook after hook. Feels like he can't miss those. And Saint has some really nice active items, right? It looks like he's got Decay and Disarming Hex. So wherever this Viscus shows up, it is going to be really challenging to fight back. Mirage moving over to the side lane, which is going to be a very comfortable place for him to farm towards the late game. Same for Geist. And it's interesting, like Sonya, he was once like very much an M1 carry player, and Infernus can be thought of in that role now, but he's been spending a lot of time in the mid lane. He went for the green spike first. It feels like this really is kind of a brawling Infernus as Bebop now picks up the urn, is going to threaten the dunk.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what level of challenge is put towards this from Oblivion. So I feel like you're not thinking about the urn near as much now, and so it might be fairly unchallenged.
Really getting like 25 melees in on the Geist. I almost can't believe it, but Cube comes in, gets the save. And with this Vitality buff, Calico's going for the kill, but I'm a little bit scared about it. If he's able to get that heal off the wave, it'll be a big deal. Maybe if the ult connects, though, that should just barely be enough damage. The heal's still coming through for Geist, turning this into a brawl, but it feels like Calico, with this Cold Snap coming off cooldown, Cold Front rather, coming off cooldown, it's going to feel a pretty nice kill to find this early in the game, especially considering the comeback souls that Oblivion are working with here.
And then we got Rift coming online as well. Is that on the right side?
So it is.
Yes.
Furnace beelining for it. He's really built for this moment, I think, in terms of the strategy he's gone for. Very much ready to hit a power peak here and now. Bebop with the max uppercut, too. He's gone for a rush max on that skill. So he is very tanky with the lifesteal that provides. You can see the value in Furnace. I mean, he gets pretty much full gone on here and still has about half HP to work with.
So much lockdown for Infernus, and has definitely made it a little bit scarier, and got to be careful with positioning there, but both teams really fighting it out for this one at the moment. And so far, health falls looking not so great for Abraham's, actually. They're going to lose Arzo together very low as well, so actually looking like the Rift will get secured here for Oblivion.
Okay, Men in Black spawned in, and the comeback, look how many of them there are. There's a real opportunity for a heavy counter push. Abraham's such a confident start to the game, but now the punish is coming in. A lot of impact felt in that fight. Look how fast, I mean, that Guardian dies in seconds. I mean, I'm really curious to see how those troopers go. There's like a heavy defense here of so many players. They need the Bebop ult to clear it. I don't think this is an overreaction. I think you need this. Yeah,
what's interesting is that it was a complete pullback from Oblivion. They decided not to kind of put anything behind that, which is interesting. Like, what are your thoughts on that, Jake?
I mean, I do think there would be no way to deal with the there's no counter to that, right, in terms of clearing the wave. So I think maybe they're smart to not commit on that particular case, and maybe that's another reason why you maybe feel like Bebop could feel like a good pick this patch, even without, I don't know if there were any changes to Bebop. If they were, they're pretty minor. But that laser, one of the best anti-pushing tools in the game, and you might have to deal with those heavy push scenarios more often than recently.
Billy's stuck in the closet. Yeah. I mean, some recovery was certainly had, I think, here for Oblivion. I think it's fair to say, 7k souls behind. It's not insane. It's not too crazy. At this point in the game, we do have this counter push coming onto the left side Walker. It does seem like there could be trouble, though, together coming in from the side. I think with Shiv, this is like such a good spot to get some kills, to convert. And that Walker is not going to take too much damage here, I don't think. But there is a lot behind this push from Oblivion, so we'll see what they can do with it.
I mean, they show that they can win a fight off that urn tray, or rather the Rift battle. Now they're looking for a dive on the Walker. This feels kind of crazy, especially with Shiv here turned up. Maybe they recognize there's just no way out at this point. They're going to go all in for the Geist kill. A nice parry from Shiv further slows that down. The Walker stomp just decimates him. And even with the parry, Bobby finding that just doesn't have the health to stick around in this fight. Together, getting a ton of souls off that.
Yeah, that didn't seem, that did not seem too fun for Oblivion. The outcome's certainly better for Abrahams, as Abrahams will also get the Walker in mid. So, you know, it felt like maybe some small respite, perhaps, you know, 6k difference, but now it's just ballooned up to a 12k advantage for Abraham. So they've managed to just take full control of the game. And right now, you know, I feel like that there is a real snowball threat that could start to be, you know, coming the way of Oblivion. I mean, you look at, you know, the health of Mayonnaise on the farm. I don't think your Venetors are ahead enough here.
Furnace trying to run this one down, get the trade, but the other does go down. So job's done by Colt, finding a kill on a very rich opponent. That's going to be very worth, especially with an additional kill coming in on Sanyo. Tried to bail him out of that scenario. Abraham's bringing a couple more players here, but it's tentative. They do not want to lose more numbers in this moment, as it feels like, despite the 10k soul lead, the last few fights have kind of come up the favor of Oblivion, which gives you a ton of souls when you're down like this in the economy game. Still, Abrahams, they are getting farm on the key carries, and you know, even a couple not the best trades here and there aren't really going to break the bank.
Yeah, sort of the 1v1 battle going on the right side lane, which is where Mayonnaise has been trying to get that solo Venator farm. Is up against the Mirage. Definitely a hard target to play the 1v1 game against, but at least there's a soul advantage for Mayonnaise. So maybe, you know, there is something to be said still here, that you're not getting too far behind. We keep getting situations where the lead gets close a little bit, but here's a buff now going to Colt's, actually a good steal away from Abrahams, taking the casting buff away. And in the meantime, Arzo does pick up the vitality buff on the other side as the urn drops. And again, you know, we'll look to see what priority is placed on that.
Another urn dunk potentially here for Taz. I mean, Bebop gets so much movement speed naturally in this build in the early game. You're kind of a perfect urn runner. Also a scary hero to try to come up to and contest and try and steal the urn away from. You risk just, especially now, right? You're not silenced anymore. Bebop could just turn, hook you, and go for a kill. Shiv taking a ton of damage. The deferment is nice, but if the damage keeps coming here, he's going to find himself in real trouble. Getting attempted to be bailed out by Mirage, but it feels like Billy's got that one dead to rights. Saint pushing on the other side of the map alongside Geist, and you see here's the damage coming in. Asleep under the tower, but there's a lot of health on these Abrahams players. They're not backing down anytime soon, and it looks like they'll be able to take their second Walker of the game. Heavy meleeing for just that maximum damage output before the next stomp comes through, and that'll be a nice little bounty of souls delivered in. Infernus even taking a fight here with Venator. The debuffs stacked up from Mirage and Infernus are really starting to bite. As strong as Venator is, he is struggling in this one.
Ooh, looking to eke out the kill though. Again, Sanya Sniper. Oh, he's so low. He's eventually going to go down, but he does get traded out. Insanely
close, actually, because if the kill comes in first on Venator, then the heal bane comes in, and Sanya probably walks out of that with the little extra HP he would find through that kill heal.
The problem now is that mid boss is a prize that is becoming ever more doable off the back of some of these fights that Abrahams have been routinely winning and coming out the better of it. And that's going to be something that's going to be perhaps impossible for Oblivion to deal with, you know, if they lose the mid boss, given how far behind they are right now. So really curious how this is going to play out, you know, where the next rift goes, because of course the first rift was actually won by Oblivion, and that went a long way in helping them to slow the bleeding down. But for now, they're really much on the back foot. And we talked about how important it is to really be winning all the lanes, so that when the rift does open up, that you are able to have more advantage in getting to it.
Gank coming in here, attempted onto Together. It's been definitely the whipping boy of the opposition here, coming in, making plays, but the blind means that even Saint can't really find much of this. Needs to get hooked out by his own Bebop just to stay alive, and Oblivion smell blood in the water. They want to look for more, push for more kills here. Abraham's still healthy, though. I'd be a little bit scared about a turn if I were Oblivion. Silver comes in deep, but the cube saves disarm as well. This Lycan has to run for the hills, but gets hooked under tower and uppercut right into the stomp. Silver going a little bit too deep, still putting down an impressive amount of damage, but feels like a lost cause trying to fight under the Walker in a 2v1.
Yeah, perfect timing on the stomp. Absolutely perfect. Oblivion with the loss of Silver. I mean, that's a nice counterplay from Abrahams, and we'll get to see Colt trying to get some revenge here. Had a very, very hard start to the game, and Ren comes in. Good damage. Nice setup there for Billy to take the finishing shots onto Empty Dreams. And yeah, there's, I mean, you know, every time it feels like Abrahams are about to kind of cross that threshold of maybe like an unrecoverable advantage, Oblivion finds something. And, you know, credit to them, Jake. They're taking the initiative to find some of these picks.
I do think that what I'm scared of seeing the draft now is what a winning rift fight rather looks like for Abrahams, because we saw when Abrahams lost the rift fight, okay, they bebop ult, and even if they didn't have bebop ult, right, you think Geist is pretty good at wave clear, you know, Infernus pretty nice at being able to defensively clear waves with flame dash, but on the other side, it's like, what do Oblivion do if there's a heavy wave of the Super Troopers pushing down a lane? They don't, to my eyes, really have the tools needed. And this B-Bomb, he's got both Hunters and Heroic. There's going to be massive assistance for the Troopers on the wave here if Abrahams win this fight. So Oblivion, this one, as good as they've been doing in these skirmishes, I think this one's do or die.
Oh, that's a good start as well, finding the hook, isolating. Oh, no. Okay, that's an insane pick. Bobby down one of the key players to create space in this small circle over the rift. And surely now, Oblivion are going to find it to be very, very difficult to displace the remainder of Abrahams that are just sitting in position here. The Bugle comes out, but a lot of focus damage on this one. Sage goes down.
Evaporated, bounced off the backboard, but I mean, he did enough. Pulled a shot of the Iridomini and the shotgun as well. That was go sign on the Victor. These executes now starting to come in. First one found on Balaclava. Billy looks to be next, has the chain, which is honestly just denying the killing blow for the moment, letting him get a little bit more damage in, but eventually is going to be finished off, and that'll be the rift fight going the way of Abrahams. Taz, crucially, still alive with all those auras he's built, and I think there's a genuine case for Abrahams pushing base Guardians right now.
Okay, so now we can see the dust settle a little bit, and we can look at the soul difference, and this. I mean, it's not crazy, Jake.
They're going to go mid-boss. They're going to go mid-boss while the Troopers take base. The Troopers will take Shrine easily if you don't defend. And so there's a huge problem right now for Oblivion, and they're coming off the respawn with very little time to make a decision.
And you're grabbing the urn seems like a pretty small constellation, given everything else that's happening. All 3 Rejuve crystals easily claimed. The balloon, or rather the lead starting to balloon now for Abrahams as the what are we calling them? The Rift Troopers. Do we have? I mean, you're calling them Men in Black. I kind of like.
Yeah,
that.
I mean, I think I don't know that they have a name. I think that maybe Rift Troopers is the right terminology. But I do love the VFX. I mean, they feel so badass. You're like, I gotta help these guys. These are my homies, you know. Silver finds a catch on Viscous, but talk about a difficult kill. I mean, so much ability to survive and escape, and gets out through the teleporter, and even forces the Lycan Curse to come out. So that's not gonna feel amazing here for Bobby on the Silver, who going to be on a little bit of downtime with the recent changes to the Silver cooldown.
Well, the 1v1 chase down. That is kind of very scary now, I would say, you know, for reasons we talked about before. Some of these Shiv updates. And again, like massive pressure on the map, and the being carried as well. And
Shiv with movement buff. Pushing this Walker, they're going to go for it, and they even get a kill on Sonya, who loses a rejuve, so they actually might be able to convert this. Additional sleep coming in. Mitigame things, but still got the concussive off and still connected on a couple targets. So Sonya showing a lot of fight back here, as maybe more players could rotate into this fight for Abrahams. Playing off the back of this rejuve, it's a lot of confidence from Oblivion to take this fight, but I don't know that they've actually got the strength to back that up. Looks like Bobby is going to be left and killed, but hey, 1 for a Walker doesn't feel the worst, especially considering you're running down the clock on these rejuve.
Yeah, and Rejuve actually got a change as well. I don't think we actually mentioned that. Rejuve is, instead of 4 minutes duration, it's now 3 minutes. So that puts more pressure on the Rejuve carriers, not to just like farm the map and have like the perfect amount of time to do everything. Now you can have to pick and choose a little bit more, and that does help the team that's behind a bit. So I really like that Rejuve change.
I do think Geist, though, getting the Spellslinger, this is when I feel like she's online now. I mean, the character has pretty massive bullet damage, but then getting the attack speed and the reload speed from Spellslinger massively moves the needle. And now these base Guardians looking to be under pressure. Taz able to threaten hooks, has the double aura to assist the push. I mean, these base Guardians are going to go on pretty quick, especially considering the damage Geist can bring and the rest of Abraham's alongside. They may even look for a fight here. Still got a couple rejuves and maybe 30 seconds remaining. They could force a Shrine here, and you have to fight into the rejuves if you want to contest it. Oh, what
nice
a
catch.
hook.
Love to see it, and that might just result in a kill here.
No, not a Venator. Oh my, okay, Taz is doing dirty things to the opponents here. Pops the aura, keeps things pushing. Inferno is going to clear out the other side of the map, and Venator getting run down. The executions now coming through from Together. And an additional, okay, Taz is actually cheating, man. He's hitting every single hook. This is insane. And honestly, I think the game's just over from that spree of kills out of Abraham's. They should get at least both shrines here, if not an additional patron drop. And this early in the game, that feels unrecoverable to me.
Yeah, totally. Everything is going to drop in the base. Yeah, I don't think they're sticking around beyond the patron drop, but I completely agree. They can definitely do that if they want to. Unless they want to try to play it safe. Everyone is starting to respawn. You know, Bobby's going to be back in the action here. And I mean, to be honest, for Oblivion, they might want to try to just force kills to happen inside the base at this point. So it might be just like do or die. The Roam Sleep will come in at nap time, see if it can find any value here. But there is just too much. Many troopers.
Yeah, there's like 10 million troopers here, and this is the lack of D push, right? Oblivion, we talk so much about circle lock, but they don't really have any D push. So when they're this behind and there's troopers crashing the base, they don't have any efficient way of clearing them. I mean, it's like heavy melees feels like the best way to clear a ton of troopers, but you can see it's just not enough. The roll comes through here from Saint. Sonya is down, but if Mayonnaise falls, and so he does, really starts to feel like you're gonna have damage issues in these fights. Empty Dreams and Arzo both still very healthy, very strong in the fight.
Yeah, clean game from start to finish here from Abrahams. Started out with a lot of kills, ended with a lot of kills and kill streaks, and they will take the victory. And once again, we'll be in a finals match here on the night shift.
I mean, I would say I'm not surprised, and I knew Abrahams was going to be a heavy favorite coming into this, but this was a tour de force. I mean, to be able to not just dominate the early game in a fashion we don't often see, as you were mentioning, right, in top-level competitive Deadlock, that kind of aggression that early into the game, but also then closing out a game that maybe in another series, you would have backed off, you would have spent your souls, played things a little more carefully. There's a little level of disrespect to stick around in the enemy base and just close the game out and say, you know what, we're ready for the real money match here. We're ready for a real opponent. Abraham's in it to win it.
I kind of want to run that one back. I feel like Cole didn't really get a chance to play this game, especially off the get-go, get initially picked off and parried quite a few times after, though I will give him credit. Did catch up a bit when it came to souls, but not nearly enough here. And it honestly felt like, gentlemen, Abrahams were on fire pretty much the entire time with multiple players. I mean, we did have the one Stable Rift taken by Oblivion, and as we saw, Task with that Hyper Beam was pretty much enough to eliminate every single one of those troopers, those super troopers, the Rift troopers, whatever you want to call them. It just felt like it was going all the way Abraham's pretty much the entire time, with some small glimpses to Oblivion.
I will say I like the laning on Shiv. Like the melee lifesteal first item feels pretty insane, considering you kind of already want to be getting as many slice and dices off in the lane as you can. Now you get a pretty massive reward of proccing melee lifesteal, which is an incredibly strong item. The characters that can reliably proc melee lifesteal without being vulnerable to parry almost universally buy the item, and to have Shiv added to that list, it does seem to look pretty good there for it together, although I don't want to draw too many conclusions from this game, just given how dominant it was.
Well, I did like the Spirit Strike picked up out of him too, because obviously the Shred, you were talking about global damage amp versus Shred earlier on today, towards the top of the show, but the fact that one slice and dice through, and I believe you're proccing Spirit Strike across all of them as well, you're just making them take even more damage, so you're getting damage amp and Shred at the same time, so it's kind of win-win.
This hook was crazy, so nasty. Hit him like mid movement scale and then follows up with another hook onto Venator. I mean, this just breaks the back of the opponent. I think without these hooks, Oblivion can at least defend this push, but losing those two crucial players like right at the start of the base siege while the Rejuves are still online and Abrahams can fight fearlessly, this is the game over moment. And then add insult to injury, another hook on top of it. I mean, Taz is just on a different level.
Yeah, really
Taz
impressive.
We know, Dan.
Yeah, it's a really impressive performance. Definitely not too much to worry about. It is interesting to see the impact of Hyper Beam against some of the nasty Men in Black troopers. I feel like there should be shades, actually. Just stick some shades on them, make them even more badass. But yeah, 32k damage.
Yeah. Some nice sunglasses on the troopers. Wait, that would go crazy.
They're going to be wearing suits as well and have some like memory eraser.
They should. Imagine they're wearing suits. We got to do that for a night shift mod. The Men in Black troopers with suits and sunglasses, that would hit.
Calm down. We got to save some of these ideas, Take a look at the match stats, though, gentlemen. I mean, we had questions about Shiv. We heard, nerfed. We heard not that. I mean, it's just a different play style now. together, it doesn't seem like it doesn't matter what iteration of Shiv currently is. Together will make it work. 14 kills, 32,000 player damage, leading the way the entire game here, with Arza right behind at 31k. It was a bloodbath, and I want to ask you, straight up here. Let's start with you, Dan. Do you think Together would have this performance on Shiv against, let's say, buff enjoyers, or do you think there was some sort of advantage going up against Oblivion with them?
I think for sure, they were able to take full advantage against Oblivion. We all saw the start that Together got to have against Cult. Felt really bad for Cult there. Got really abused in the early laning phase. But I do think that, something that I was mentioning earlier on is that Shiv, I feel like, is much more coded to being stronger and being able to tempo out early a bit more with some of the changes. And I think that's really dangerous because, Shiv, if he gets a good start, is going to be kind of monstrous later into the game. So I would expect that we could see this again. I think you got to be careful. I totally agree with what Jake said. The melee lifesteal and the melee items are an incredibly strong addition to how Shiv can, start his build out. I think it just gives him a lot of power to be more aggressive. So I love that.
All right, well, gentlemen, it's time to find out who our MVP of this match is. And I think it's quite obvious who we're choosing in this one. It's going to be Together once again, finish off with 14 kills. And again, coming into the very first match on the night shift with the minor patch that recently happened with some pretty big changes to Shiv, and he made it work. And I mean, Jake, I'm pretty sure someone's out there is making this build, putting it up on the build finder in game right now, and it's going to be #1 by the end of the day.
Yeah, none of these item buys are actually, there's one item I want to mention other than the melee lifesteal and the spirit strike, which sure, makes sense with the changes. Shouldn't really shock anyone that he's building those. One item I really noticed and I like here is the recharging rush on Shiv. That was not an item people were really building previously because you just weren't dealing enough gun damage to reliably proc it. But now that alt fire does such more burst damage, being able to hit that burst damage threshold to get an extra knife charge maybe is a lot more realistic now, which is huge for Shiv because sustaining the knife charges over time is, I think, crucial to this character's late game damage output. So I think Together has put together something pretty nice here, and I'm excited to see more from it. Definitely picking MVP was tough this game, considering especially Taz, just put on a show to close things out. But Together was here start to finish, right? In basically every single fight, not just dominating the lane, but continuing to snowball throughout and being a key threat. We also saw those repeated executes really come to fruition in terms of their significance, especially around those rift fights. So Together, always a stalwart on Shiv, always a player that I think a lot of folks are going to look to when it comes to understanding this character.
I think we're going to continue to probably see him today as well here, Dan. And obviously you're saying a very solid performance. The thing is, it wasn't like, Together just got to walk through the entire team. He had a very strong start at the beginning with him and Saint, the viscous lane, and Shiv. They got early parries, they got early snowball. And more importantly, I feel like that's something that's unsung in a lot of these games, is taking an early snowball like that and just running the entire lobby with it. And that's exactly what Together's shown to be able to do in the past and shown to be able to do here.
Yeah, and I think to be fair as well, I think that Abrahams did get a little loose at times as well. We saw some pretty deep dives into enemy territory and they were having fun with it. And I feel like there were certain spots in the game where they had advantages that against an opponent that's got more reps, that's got a higher profile, that maybe they would have been playing a little bit tighter, as we know Abrahams tends to. Because I think the game actually got a little close in certain spots that were kind of surprising. But regardless of that, I think Shiv's going to be a highly contested pick. I do think he's very dangerous, and I think it's very interesting how his role might be now kind of viewed in the composition based on some of these changes, and just in terms of how you prioritize him against other frontliners. I don't really understand how teams are going to decide where he fits now, honestly.
In a permaban spot, maybe.
Yeah, maybe, yeah.
I also had here, gentlemen, in chat, Kalaris. Of course, we talk about him, R&D'ing some things for 6 months. He managed to turn this one around for us in a day. The Night Minions and the Night Rift.
I like
that. I like that nomenclature. That works for me. As for Shiv's place in the meta, I feel like maybe these changes in a way bring him more in line with some of the other frontliners, like playing around melee items, kind of like a core element of a lot of the characters we see in the front line. And yes, they toned down his mobility, I think, relatively significantly. And so maybe Shiv's ability to just escape from any scenario is not going to be quite as ridiculous as it used to be. If you do catch him, maybe he's going to be more vulnerable, but maybe he has more power to fight back in those moments too. So I like these changes overall to Shiv. It feels like maybe this kind of brings him into a more understandable state for the average player and even for the highest level players to be vulnerable to things like slowing hex. It's a pretty big deal.
Well, I feel like Jake was talking to me when he's like average players, and he's like really looking at me down the camera there. Let's take a look at the bracket one more time to get you guys caught up on what all went down the first game and what's come up later on today. With Abraham's win against Oblivion, they take on Buff and Joras in a best of 3. But of course, over in North America, we do have Melee Creeps taking on Burr Clock in a best of 1 to see who takes on the defending champions of FPS Lounge. That all is coming on the other side of a break. You're not going to want to miss this final match, because I heard if Abrahams beats Buff and Joras, ZP did confirm he is going to wax off his eyebrows. We'll see you then.